Welcome to Calm Clear Conversations. I'm Christopher Johnson with Calm Clear Communications. And with me is none other than the founder of the or I apologize, with the founder of Afros in Audio, Talib Jasir.
Thank you for
Welcome.
having me. Thank you.
All right. So, what is Afros in Audio?
All right. Well, we'll jump right in, huh? So, Afros and Audio is a podcast festival, 2-day conference, along with other things, community workshop events, and all of these things. It started in 2019 and started from actually my desire to create space for Black audio drama creatives. I did an audio drama in 2017 called The Fuzzings Until One of Us is Dead. It's a comedy series. It's 4 short episodes. It was done in a high pressure opportunity to see what I could do if I decided to do something with my life at some point. And that's basically your landmark, your momentum. I was a part of Momentum Education, and we had 90 days to turn out some things that we always wanted to do, but never got around to it for all of our reasons. And so, my audio drama that I created, I put on my list of desires, and immediately I reached out to my coach at the time and I said, I can't do this, take it off. And he's like, you can do anything in 90 days. I'm leaving it on and let's go. So that was my first opportunity to say, okay, there are things that I can do that I still believe that I can't. And so the audio drama was turned out in that 90-day period. And as always, because I'm a community builder and I'm a community person, I wanted to find more. I needed to support. I wanted to support others. And so in 2017, audio dramas isn't what it is today, specifically by Black creatives. And so it was a hard sell, to say the least. And so as I was getting ready to completely ditch the idea, as a creative, I pick up, I put down, as much as I drink water. And instead of doing it this time, because there was something about what was the intention behind what we were creating, what I was creating, that told me don't put this one down. And so I just reached for support, and they suggested a event, and I to this day think they meant 2 hours of a meetup, and I left that thinking, okay, boom, we're gonna do a 2-day conference. Um, and that's how Afros and Audio began. It was a dream that I kept waking up from the inception to the first inaugural festival, asking myself why did I say I was going to do this? Why did I offer to do this? Why am I continuing to push forward like I can do this? And needless to say, it happened, and the rest is history. We're in the 4th year in 2022.
And so, all right, I think that is wonderful. I think it's amazing. I am encouraged and inspired. So, you one of the descriptions that you have made of yourself is a storyteller,
Mm-hmm.
and stories matter. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that's what connects us.
Oh
Is
yeah.
there? All right, I know the answer.
Mhm.
Is there room for more podcast?
Absolutely. Absolutely. More and more and more and more. What I want people to understand the most is that beyond the industry of it all,
Mhm.
this is us, whatever genre it is, actually recording our lived experiences, our perspective, our desires. This is us in real time recording these things. And that becomes more important than anything to me, especially for us, especially for Black folks, especially for people of the diaspora, to not have our narrative told, but for us to tell it in real time, to record it, to have it archived, um, that other people listen, not to persuade them that we're anybody that we already know ourselves to be, but for ourselves. It's important. It's important. It's important for our own healing. It's important for our own way forward. It's important for us as we build community that's inclusive and accepting.
It is. Our stories matter.
Hmm.
And who better to tell them than us? So, you know, Shannon Kaysen from Detroit
Hmm.
had mentioned, somebody had said there are too many podcasts already. And his response was a refutal of that. It's like, no, they're not. People of color need to be telling their stories, sharing their stories, making more and more podcasts.
Absolutely.
Our stories matter. We need to tell them and get them out and get them shared so that they don't expire with us,
Right.
so that they
Right.
continue on. So how did you get into storytelling?
Well, I was a writer early on in my life. I wrote as quickly as I could. And I shared stories. I got discouraged. I've had moments where I called myself a writer and completely was capping. I wasn't being a writer at all. I just wanted to be a writer. I just wrote before, but I wasn't actively creating, wasn't actively writing. And so storytelling for me has always been there, right? I come from a community of black folk, old, old folks, young folks. I come from that community, and stories were being told, whether it was in the church, they stand up and tell whatever testimony they wanted to tell. Um, I listened to the radio. I read Sundiata um, early on, maybe when I was a teenager. Octavia Butler. I was immersed
Hmm.
in storytelling. And I read Beloved probably at 13, 14, like Toni Morris and James Baldwin. I've always loved storytelling. I've always loved our storytelling, because it gives me a glimpse into a space and time that I wasn't a part of. It gives me an opportunity to understand people in a different way. And also gives me an opportunity to understand myself. So us telling stories is as old as we are. And so to continue this practice, no matter the medium, to continue this practice into the future is where it's at. You know, it's the only way to be, in my opinion.
It is. And the new-ish medium of podcasting is a great platform to archive, share, collect, exchange stories, because stories do
Absolutely.
matter.
Hmm.
It's what connects us. Um, the so all right, Baldwin. There can never be too much. And one of the things I love about I'm in Metro Detroit. There are people here who have told stories involving Baldwin on stage at the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers.
Hmm.
You know, so and what I love about that is it opens up a new audience to Baldwin and interactions with him, because he wasn't a static figure.
Right.
He traveled the world. The people who were telling stories in Metro Detroit were people he encountered in Metro Detroit and who traveled with him. And that's a beautiful thing. So, Octavia Butler, uh, do you have a favorite Octavia Butler?
I mean, I do. It would be Parable of the Sower. Is my favorite, and those trilogies that she did, and I've always been in love with her style of storytelling. But I've also been in love with like Gloria Naylor's a form of storytelling, Mama Day. These type of stories that tell um to just tell about who we are, where we've been. It gives you a glimpse, and the fact that most of these stories are about people and experiences that are still here. So even those stories that are from Mama Day and Song of Solomon, and all of these things. Um, these are part of our DNA, you know, part of our ancestry and our history that need to be told, if for nothing else, to see how far we've evolved, you know, how far we've come, um, and always have an anchor to look back at.
True. And all right, so one of the things I like about Octavia Butler, uh, it is she includes a lot of information that's relevant and that was not taught elsewhere.
Hmm.
So, you know, and as well
Well,
as, hmm?
I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No, it's, you know, it's just a wonderful thing to read something in one of her novels and encounter that years later, you know, as part of, oh, well, when someone else was telling the story of this particular thing, it's like, oh, that wasn't fiction. That was her interweaving history into her novel.
Yeah, and Afro and her idea of Afrofuturism, right? And so one of the things I think that she was, um, I'll be as bold as to say, a prophet, you know, prophesizing. And so one of the things that concerns me a little bit, I say this in jest, but Parable of the Sower is based in 2032, where the world has changed drastically from what we know. And the way in which our world is moving, um, it's very interesting. Let's just say it that way.
I understand. And yeah, see, but what I like about the futurism is we exist.
Absolutely, always.
So it's, you know, reading a novel and it's like, oh, yes, we are in that space and we exist. And that's a good thing. It expands. There's a comfort in that.
Yeah, yeah.
So a recent novel that came out, I think 2019, but let me see, The Space Between Worlds
Mm,
by Micaiah Johnson. Highly recommended.
okay,
Now,
thank you.
I'm biased, Johnson. Yes, she is my cousin, but the book is really good.
Okay,
Not just my word for it. NPR has been shortlisted for a number of different prizes. It's a good book. And
I'll
it's
check it out.
again Afrofuturism. We exist. And I love that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things to know about us and people in general, the humanity is resourceful, right? Um, and so we've always been resourceful, and I think that one of the things that we've experienced in the over the years, especially once integration and integration segregation, that shift from creating our own worlds, right, to now no longer in our mind needing our own self-contained worlds, right? We now branch out and we now have services and all these things, jobs and all this, from external places, but um, we will, for as long as we're here, create our own. We will be resourceful, and I think one of the things missing is that we've kind of lost that in the sauce, just like we've lost that. Um, People who we look up to or we think is have gone further than us, they're no different than you or I. We're just people who made a choice. Some of us are brave, you know, and that's a anthology from back in the day. But you know, from a feminist theory, a womanist theory, I should say, because there's a group of Black women that wrote. Some of us are brave, and um, and that always stood out for me because it does take bravery to acknowledge that anything's possible and that we are to create an author of whatever we experience, um, and therefore to create what it is that we want.
Now, a question, a comment uh, from Walter. Of all the interviews and appearances I've seen you in, I don't think I've heard this much about the authors that inspire you. So,
Yeah.
that's, you know, it is good to share that type of information. So
Hmm.
we have, I mean, this is a reading list I'm going to delve more into and make sure that I am caught up.
Yeah. It's a lot of good stuff out there.
It is. And all
Yeah.
right, one of the things with, all right, so Afros and audio, the end of last year, the beginning of this year, there was a, uh, not, what would you say, a merger? Not a merger, a
You could call it
cooperation,
that.
a
Yeah, you could
merger?
call it that. Yeah,
Okay.
partnership.
A
Yes.
partnership,
Yeah.
yes, a
Yeah.
partnership. And so now and the umbrella is the Black Podcasters Association, correct?
Yes.
O-
Yes.
Okay. And that's when I heard of that, I had to join. It's like, oh, wait, a collection of folk
Yeah.
podcasting? So the Black Podcasters Association is, how would you describe that?
Sure. So, just going back a bit and shout out to Walter. Thank you for joining, man. I appreciate it. One of the things that was intentional when I first started Afros and Audio Podcast Festival was that it would never be about the 2 days, but the day after, right? The days after, because what we need is an opportunity to continue to stay in community with one another, an opportunity to continue conversations, an opportunity to continue the information share. And so, with that being said, it was always the desire to ensure that folks who attend, folks who connect, are able to stay connected, and but more importantly, was able to have a community they could rely on, not just for podcasting, but for I'm feeling a certain way today, and I need some support, and to be able to see a circle of people who not only want to see you win, but want to see you thrive, emotionally, mentally, physically, and also in however we measure our own successes. And so in 2020, after the second festival in February, once again in this month, Carter G. Woodson built, um, we I started the Afros and Audio Community Network, which I saw as a mastermind community of podcasters. But I always wanted it to be more than podcasting because we are people who happen to podcast. That's not all we are. And sometimes when we focus on the one thing, there's so much else gets missed um, in the ecosystem of support and love and encouragement, right? And so I did that, but I had to learn that two things. I'm one person. I had to remind myself of that, and I can't do it all. Um, and so we are committed to community and collaboration, right? And so however that looks, a lot of people get caught up in how something looks and how something gets turned out, but the point is actually that it turns out. That's the whole point, is that your desire turns out. Forget the how, right? And so this was an opportunity, Black Podcast Association, with Corey Gum as the founder. I paid attention. I've always been an observant person. Paid attention to different communities around. I paid attention to the commitment, the integrity around it, and once we were introduced, and once we were done with the festival, I approached him and had a conversation, not already set, but had a conversation to further affirm whether or not this was the right move, and it was, and I'm very excited to be partnering with Christopher and I'm sorry, Corey, Corey and the Black Podcast Association. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited to be a member because, all right, at some point there will be a podcast. That's one
Awesome.
of my objectives for this year because, again, hey, our stories matter, our stories need to be told, and there should be a framework and a foundation to give us the structure to put those pieces out into the world.
Hmm.
So I am thrilled that I happened upon the association when I did. Um, Now, with the current everything that's going on in the world, what has been a challenge? Because a lot of things now are just virtual
Hmm.
over the internet. Does that make it more challenging to collaborate with podcast or to book guests?
I don't think it is. Actually think um what we've experienced in the last 2 years is actually more based in our actual realities than what we were choosing before, meaning that a lot of things that we were connected to and we thought we had to do, like we had to go and sit in a cubicle or an office, that was a myth buster. Once we hit the pandemic, you actually don't, and you can still be efficient, and you can still, and you might even be happier. But that's another story. um that this false sense of security, or just the way in the world acts and reacts, we had to start to no longer connect ourselves with the external expectations of the world, because that's what we have been doing so far, getting up, going out into the world, meeting up with friends, doing whatever, but it was all external. And this was this first opportunity. I call it the great pause, even though there's a lot with it, and I don't mean it lightly. But for those of us who still have the privilege of being here, right? um there is this opportunity inside of it to connect with ourselves. But getting to the virtual aspect of it, I do believe that what opened my eyes was that we were able to be more accessible, in a way that wasn't really a consideration in our first in-person event. But because for most of us, as human nature, is when we don't have an experience, we don't very rarely think about other people's experiences. And so, once again, this was an opportunity for me to become aware of what's needed, what's really wanted and needed in this time that we're living in. And accessibility to virtual events has been a game changer for a lot of people who are disabled, a lot of people that are impaired in different ways, a lot of people who or have financial considerations. And so, with that said, I don't think it's difficult at all. I think it just takes adapting and adjusting, which is something that we know how to do. And
Absolutely.
and so now that we're here, it's okay. We've also learned that it's okay. you know, and so, well, I've learned that. I'll just speak for my own self. I've learned that it's okay. Um, and so this next festival, I do want to be hybrid. I do want in person, but I don't think there'll ever be a time where it's not also virtual, because I believe that there are people in this world who need that, and I don't want to leave them out.
So when is the next festival?
It will be at the end of October this year, because it's going to be in person. Hopefully, we're going with the variants, whatever happens, but that's the goal. Um, we wanted to not be so close, because this year was November 13th and 14th, and the year before that was November, around the same time. However, our in-person event was actually in June of the first year in Brooklyn. And that was where I wanted to be. I thought it was a sweet spot, people getting out of work, kids getting out of school, traveling, and all sort of thing. And so it's the same kind of considerations, not wanting to travel so close to Thanksgiving, but bring it back a little bit in the end of October, and maybe that will help people who want to be there, to not have too many considerations around traveling.
Okay. All right. So one of the things that a positive that has come about, I think, from this virtual environment is a dropping of the work facade.
Mm.
So we were one person at work, and that's who we were at work. But now we are encouraged to embrace our full humanity all the time. So people, as it turns out, they have complicated lives. They might be a child in the background on a
Mhm.
virtual call. There might be pets. Pets always are a positive sort of thing. They steal the show. Um,
Yeah.
but we're encouraged to embrace more of our full selves as opposed to just our work facade.
Hmm.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
It
Um,
absolutely is. Wherever we don't have to perform is a beautiful thing, because in performance is often oppression. And performance is always is often a swallowing of things that we really mean to say or really um, mean to be, and that creates a dissonance, that creates a chaos and confusion. And I've never been one for chaos and confusion. I like clarity. It supports me, and so it has been a good thing for those of us willing to go there with ourselves. To detach ourselves from um, the performances of the world, because that's really what it's a lot of what it's been. And I hope that translates well to people.
you know, all right. I think the removing the performative aspects
Hmm.
opens up the ability to connect through story. We have more in common. We understand. It's like, oh, yeah, I have that. Okay, my kids are not always as well behaved as this scenario.
As this picture on my desk
Exactly.
seems, yeah.
So, so
Yeah.
or it's like, gee, other things are going on in the house or in the
Hmm.
environment. Wow, that's construction that you hear outside, or
Yeah.
all those things. The When we remove that performative layer, we can find a connection.
Yeah. And not only with other people, but to ourselves. And I think that is the most important part of all.
It,
you
it
know?
it is.
Yeah.
And see, that's one of the other things that I think that has come about through this. There is a greater acceptance in finding, quote unquote, yourself.
Yeah.
Finding, it's like, oh, if you don't have to perform, who are you?
Mm.
And people dwelling on that. And it's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, me. I need time for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Now,
That's a get to. That's a get to.
it is. It is. Now, where are you located right now?
I'm in Maryland. I've returned to the place of my ancestors, and I'm ecstatic about it. I'm on the eastern shore of Maryland. Um, and it's peaceful, and I think peaceful environments is the new black. If I could be so bold, you know, is that we get to seek out and have the things that we want. Um, and if there's a lack of awareness on how to do it, that there's support out there to having what you want.
And see, and that's one of the other aspects I like about the Black Podcasters Association. If there's an awareness, then you can find out. So, all right, because my goal is to launch a podcast. It's like, all right, well, gee, what's involved in that? Lo and behold, there's an association that can say, oh, all right, here are the steps that you need to take. No, we're not going to take them for you, but here's a map on how you can bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be.
Right. Hmm.
And just having an organization to provide that foundation, provide that map, it's a it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that, and I want that for people. I want people to see opportunity in people, and not in a scarce way, and not in a capitalistic way or an opportunist way, but that we are capable of encouraging and supporting, and also accelerating processes. Right? There's things that folks will spend weeks and months on, that um, asking a clear question can accelerate that process. And so I think it's so important that we are willing and able to share with one another in a way that says that this is what my abundance looks like. Um, I don't have to be afraid of sharing my information with you because you are you and I am me. Um, and so there's things that we get to do as individuals, and there's also opportunities for us as collectives.
True. And it sounds like you're operating out of a growth and abundance mindset.
Absolutely. I am for sure. But it's a little deeper than that. I come from it not being read about in an article to say this is how I can be in the world. It's yes, it's abundance, yes, it's growth, but it's because I grew up with people who did it effortlessly. It was a part of not only their survival but how they thrived. Um, in the world in space and time for themselves for the people around them. I come from that, and I witnessed that, and I didn't step over it as if I didn't see it because it supported me.
And see, that's important. And that is, again, that's part of the stories that need to be shared and told and connecting a variety of individuals to bridge that chasm between us. So,
Absolutely, yeah, it's possible. Um, it's possible, and if the place in which you are it's not serving you and it's not giving you your desired outcome, then you let it go and you move on. Life is People say life is short. I say that life is the longest thing that you or I will ever experience. And so because of that, I'm going to be diligent and urgent about the things that I want to experience in my life. And I encourage that for all people.
so wait, we don't have to carry around all this other baggage?
You don't have to, but you have to be willing to let it go.
Oh, and see, that I will, that's the hard part,
Yeah, it's a
letting it go.
process. Yeah, it's
It
a
is.
process and it takes work. And that's another place where willingness is involved. Um, there's a you either want it or you don't. There's either you can or not. It's completely up to us. It's completely up to you. When I went to podcast movement and we spoke, I had a call and response. If it's to be, it's up to me, and that's something that I had to learn, both from an individual and community space. But if it's going to be, it's up to me. If there's something that I want, then I'm the person. I'm the one constant in my life. All the opportunities can come and go. All the people can come and go. I'm the one person that will remain until I don't.
Oh, all right. I really love that statement. I am the one constant in my life. So the relationship that's most important is with myself.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely, absolutely. And there's liberation to be had, and I think that our world consistently creates ideas that doesn't resonate for a lot of people. So Afros and Audio, yes. Vanguard Podcast Network, yes. Black Podcast Association, yes. Life coaching, author, all of these things. But if I were to ask myself what my point is, the point is for people to understand how powerful each of us actually are.
Wow. Inhabit your own voice and get comfortable with it.
Yeah, yeah. Do the
Yeah.
work to get there if necessary.
Yeah. But again, since it is the most significant relationship we'll ever have with ourselves, the work is always worthwhile.
Absolutely. Always worth it. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Yeah.
That, yeah, it's not easy, but it's worth it. That sounds like wisdom for me that my parents passed along.
Yeah.
When you want to put something down, it's like it's not done. Do it the right way.
Right.
Not
Right.
saying it's easy, but it's worth
Yeah. Yeah. We don't half ass over here.
it.
Yeah.
No, no. So what is on your reading list now? I mean, you've mentioned a couple books, but what's on your table now that you're making your way through?
Sure. So I actually just downloaded The Fledgling by Octavia Butler yesterday to listen. I think it's one of two books I've never read of hers out of all of the books that she wrote. I'm also listening to Stay Woke, which is about meditation and just being aware of our ability to meditate and to create it the way in which it works for us, again, without the external noise. Um, and I think that's it. I've read some great books, and I'm always curious. I'm always there. And I read a long, long time ago is to be a great writer, you must be an avid reader, right? So it
Yeah.
expands. It expands the mind. Um, yeah.
And all right, so there is a BPA book club,
Hmm.
and I don't remember the recommendation off the top of my head, but I know there's a meeting about it this month where we're going to discuss it. Um, I remember it's from NPR, so I will find that and put that in the comments. So as exclusive as BPA is there still an opportunity for people to join?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a link in my you should be able to find it everywhere. But it's on our Instagram, which you can follow at Afros and Audio. Um, it's also on our website, afrosandaudio.com. But you can also go to blackpodcastersassociation.com and learn how to join from there.
Okay. And is there a podcast that you who needs more listeners, more appreciation, more a bigger, wider audience?
Who I can't tell you who because most people, regardless of what level they are, most people want to grow if they're being intentional about it anyway. And so I think for all of us, there's opportunity to once again to understand that we can all support each other in major ways, and to understand that we're mightier, in a sense, together. And so, um, where I want us to get to is an understanding of what that looks like tangibly, and go do it.
Mm,
um, expeditiously. And so that looks like supporting, cross promoting, talking about each other's podcasts, being on each other's podcasts, um, but also making sure that even if they're not in a room with you, that you bring them along, whoever that is, as often as you can. And it
absolutely.
changes things. It changes things.
Yeah, those people that mention your names in rooms that you're not in a
Hmm.
positive way. That's always a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to get there.
absolutely. So, sir, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. It has been informative. The wisdom that you have shared,
Thank you.
transformative. It's like, hey, when I can end the conversation with, "Wow, I got to check out this book, this book, this book."
Mhm.
I'm trying to keep up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I recently, speaking of storytelling, I have recently published episodes 1 through 9 of the Turnaround podcast, and it's called the Turnaround Podcast: The True Life Basketball Story of Stuart Squirt Holly. You'll know it when you see the cover. There's a few that will show up in the search, but it's really a coming of age story of a man who's now in his 40s and who was a juvenile delinquent, played basketball was always his center, his anchor. But it was a lot going on in his life, and I think it's important for youth, for adults to listen to it and it's again storytelling. It's him telling his story. And so the Turnaround Podcast, I would love for people to check it out.
Okay. And we'll get that link in the comments so that so that it can enjoy a wider audience and get
Okay.
more recognition.
Yeah,
So again,
absolutely. It deserves it.
it, I have no doubt. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. My pleasure.